What's up, bro? It's your boy Mike Muse for the episode of the Mike Muse Show. I am super excited to be in conversation with my next guest. And it has nothing to do with his looks or his fame or the Vampire Diaries that you guys all love. Not at all. When I found out about this brand of bourbon, I just had to have them. My audience, as you guys know, I love bourbon. I love cigars and I love brotherhood. And Paul, along with his partner, Paul Wesley, along with his partner, Ian, so I'm a Halder, created a bourbon called Brothers Bond. And that just had me at hello. So I'm not here to talk about Vampire Diaries. Good luck with that. You can Google it, follow him on Instagram, and all that kind of good stuff. I'm here to talk about Brothers Bond. So ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, the amazing, the talented Paul Wesley. What's happening, man?
Thank you, Mike. Wow, what an intro. That was fantastic. I'm happy to be here, man. Happy to be in New York. Doing the Brothers Bond rounds, meeting with some great retailers and restaurants and bars, and it's just been and press, and it's been a blast, man. I've never done anything like this before. I've always been in the entertainment industry, so I'm thrilled to be here.
I know you live in LA now, but like, what you used to live in New York though?
Yeah.
What has been the favorite part of you coming back to New York? I'm curious on this trip.
I mean,
New York is slightly different.
Yeah, I would say so. Look, it's just the culture of driving in your car is not something that I particularly enjoy. And, last night we were at one of our, at a location that serves Brothers Bond, a new location. And everyone, from LA is hopping in an SUV. And I said, what are you guys doing? I'm walking home. They're like, well, it's 20-minute walk. I'm like, yeah, it's a 20-minute walk,
Yeah.
And that's for me. I spent, I lived here for years. It was always city bikes. And it's not about getting physical exercise. Sure, that's nice too. But it's really about being kind of connected to everyone on the street in one way or another, whether you're just passing by them. There's just a human connection that you just don't experience in LA because you're in a bubble. You're either in your house or in your car. And so I think just from a simplistic perspective, that's what I miss about it.
I love the connectivity that you mentioned, right? The connectivity of New York City. When I'm in LA, I don't have that moment of connectivity. And people always ask me, would I ever live permanently in LA? And I'm bi-coastal, but I said, no, my primary address will always be New York City because I feed off of the energy. What I love about it is that you can gather 5 different people and you can have 5 different viewpoints on a glass of ice water. And I love that you can go into a bar and sit by yourself and then come out with 1,000 friends, right? They may not be your best friend, but they were friends for that moment. And I think that is what New York does. And so I think it's a great time to introduce Brothers Bond into the conversation.
Hey, and I see that bottle is half empty.
I mean, there's a story behind this, Paul.
Okay.
There is a story behind this, Paul. And my audience, Paul, knows I don't hawk products. Like, I don't have products on my show. I don't do authors. I don't do books. I don't do none of these things, right? Like, if you have a gadget, or I don't do it. But audience, when I found out about Brothers Bond, what connected me was, well, I used to not drink. And it wasn't until about maybe 6 years ago that I began to drink. And over time, I was always feeling left out of that shared experience with people who were drinking. So I started having cigars, and I was like, okay, cigars is a good shared experience, or enjoying it. But everyone, Paul, kept telling me I need to try bourbons and scotches. I just didn't like the taste of it. Mm-hmm. So my best friends, who I'll call my brothers, can get me to try these different bourbons. Didn't like it. It wasn't until I tried Blanton's. And once I tried Blanton's, then it opened up my palate to be open to other bourbons. And so now me and my brothers, we get together just for cigars and bourbon. When this go ahead.
No, please go ahead. Finish. I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, go.
Okay. What I was going to say is, it's funny you say that. You're like, oh, I didn't really drink. And, that's the whole thing. Like, of course, I understand, like, alcohol isn't something that the whole concept of Brothers Bond is that alcohol really isn't something that should be necessarily consumed alone. Of course, sometimes we want to kick back and have a drink, whatever. The idea of it is that it's a communal experience and it's a bonding and shared experience. So when we created Brothers Bond, that was a huge staple. It wasn't about, hey, everyone pick up a bottle and, go get smashed. It's not about that. if you're going to have a drink, which not everyone has to, but if you're going to have a drink and a cigar, for example, or just a drink, whatever, do it with people you want to bond and connect with, whether it's your family or your brother or your sister or a stranger you meet at the bar. That's kind of the whole concept of getting together and creating a sense of community. And that's really what this was. And I don't mean to sound like too, kind of, I don't know, like soft about it, but that's just really the concept.
No, I mean, it's not soft at all about it. I talk about this all the time. So, I mean, I don't use that brother loosely, by the way, Paul. I know a lot of people throw around that term brother very frequently. I don't do that, right? Just because for me, a brother is, if I am stuck in an isolated island, they will do what they need to do to charter a boat, a plane. They will call the U.S. Navy to rescue me, right? And so that's what I mean by brother. I even wrote in my Instagram post recently about my brothers who I drink bourbon with, that they've redefined brotherhood for me, right? To that it's not about a best friend, but it's about a brother. And then just what happened, they were coming over when the package came, a brother's bond. And I was going to open it, Paul, and do the unboxing and do the social media, but they were there to celebrate my birthday. And I was like, yo, this bourbon just arrived. It's brother's bond. We're brothers. Let's taste it and see, our thoughts on this. And we absolutely loved it, Paul. I love the complexity of it. I love that it hits you right away, but not too strong. I love that it gives you some complex flavors. But for me, it was about the finish. Sometimes some bourbons have too much of a bite on the finish, but the finish on you guys is so smooth, man. Like, what was the thing that you focused on the most? Was it the beginning, the opening, the middle? Was it the finish?
Yeah.
I mean, all matters, right? But I'm curious, what did you ensure?
Well, a lot of, there's a ton of these quote unquote celebrity brands, right? Like everyone's doing a tequila, everyone's doing a this, that, and I'm not going to name any specifically, but a lot of people just slap their names on a bottle. They don't even know what they're selling. Maybe they've tasted it. Someone told them it was great. Okay, cool. For us, Ian and I, Ian Summerall, my other half, my better half, he and I created this. We actually have the exact same taste palette. And so when we were creating this mash bill, we knew what we wanted. And I can't even quite put it into words, but we spent a lot of time combining different mash bills, blending it in his living room, in his kitchen, wherever, making sure that it was something that we both fell in love with. And we wouldn't stop until we were satisfied. And it took us a long time. And I just remember that one, kind of moment where we both tried it and we knew this was it. We knew it was the one. And to put into more kind of specific kind of, I guess, layman's terms, it's like there's just what we were chasing is this two-prong attack of complex enough for people like myself. I'm a bourbon drinker, but approachable, because there is a stigma about bourbon and dark spirits. People are like, oh, gross, old man drink, ew, it's gonna burn this. And for us, it's like, well, we wanted to really have people enjoy bourbon, because bourbon is the true American spirit. It's the true American spirit. And like, it's right now, tequila and all that gin, and that's like the trendy. And for us, it's like, guys, you don't realize how much goes into making a straight bourbon whiskey, the aging process, the barrels, the blending. I mean, it's such a meticulous and such an American drink. And it's just a spirit, rather. And it's just something that we really wanted to introduce people to. So I would say, to answer your question, smoothness. That's it. That's what we're just smooth, no kick, no bite, no kick you in the teeth, just kind of this smoothness.
I think that's the key, because that was my entry to bourbon, because literally everything you just mentioned about why people are apprehensive to drinking bourbon was my apprehension to the scotches, to the bourbons, to the whiskeys. I was like, it's just too strong. It's too much of a bite. That's just not my thing. But literally when I tried the other bourbon, I want to keep promoting them while I'm here with you guys, it was just smooth. And from beginning to end. And so I'm really glad that you focus on the smoothness of it. And I think you would have entree to a new audience, right, who may not be used to drinking bourbon. This could be their good introduction to it. It's the point now, Paul, my audience, because Atlantis is hard to find. They actually would DM me pictures and they find it, right? And so hopefully, audience, you guys will also DM me when you get a chance to try Brother's Bond. If you never have tried it before, I encourage bourbons before. I encourage you to try Brothers Bond. No lie, no cap. It is the smoothest experience. I care, Paul, about the finish because the finish is what I remember the drinks by.
Yeah.
And so I'm really glad on that. One thing I want to hint on is more about the relationship, because I'm very relationship driven. As you mentioned about me and my brothers, one of my brothers, we bonded over the song Otis with Jay-Z and Kanye. Otis had just dropped that day, and we were sitting at this space, and someone had wanted to introduce us, but we didn't know why. So we're just waiting for him to finish his meeting. And so we're making small talk. And then I said, yo, did you hear that new Otis that just dropped today? And he was like, did I hear it? I love it. And then we literally just started rapping line for line the song. And then there's a line where it says, sophisticated rap, I write my raps in cursive. And we both just screamed in a moment that was our favorite line. And ever since then, Paul, it's been he and I, and then my other three brothers, man. So I'm curious for you. I know you guys, brothers on Vampire Diaries, you guys met off screen and drank whatever, but what was the moment that connected you and Ian? Was it the conversation? Was it the song? Was it?
Yeah.
Talk to me when he was like, you know what? You're my guy.
Well, yeah. I mean, so the thing about brotherhood is that, it's deeper than friendship in a way, right? It's I have many friends, and I guess friends, acquaintances, whatever. A brotherhood is a thing where you kind of, that you're kind of connected kind of forever in some sense, whether you cannot talk for 2 years, but you're always going to be brothers kind of thing. And I just remember, first of all, we were on this journey together on this show, Vampire Diaries, and it was such a huge sort of grind for us, emotionally, physically. The show was extremely popular. There was a lot of pressure to perform, etc. And I just remember one time we flew to London, or to England rather, I forget, somewhere in northern England actually, to do some press. I don't remember why. And I remember, through all the kind of chaos, we had a night and finally to ourselves. And he said, Ian said, hey, do you want to go get some cigars? And I'm not kidding, and have a drink and go sit on this like awesome bench in this old castle. And I was like in the garden, and I was like, yeah, absolutely. And I just remember we did that. And we sat there, and it was late, and you couldn't hear anything, couldn't see anyone. We were drinking bourbon, and we were having these cigars, and we literally just talked about how grateful we were for the lives that we had been living. We hadn't really stopped for a moment to think about how great everything was. You spent your whole life hustling as a young actor, trying to get to that next thing, this, that. You never really enjoy it because you're always putting pressure on yourself. I still do that. And that was a moment where we sat down and just were like, wow, this is so cool. We're so lucky. How great is this? We're having a cigar. We're in a castle in England, and we're on this great show. And that was a real moment of kind of gratitude and connection that we had with one another that I kind of think really stood out for both of us. We talk about that a lot.
I'm glad you remember that moment. And I think that intimacy amongst men is so important, right? And that is so we do bourbon walks and cigar walks monthly. And there's been times, man, we've cried on the walks. We've opened up on the walks.
It's such a stigma, isn't it, that men need to be tough, and you can be tough and you can still be a man, and you can still be sensitive and talk about your feelings and open up with other. I love that. I love it when we drop that machismo, that act, and we can sort of talk about things like real men, frankly, and that's I agree with you, and I love that, man.
Because a lot of times people drink to open up to be more social, maybe at a party, to connect with a girl or whatever your love interest may be, to kind of give them what they call that liquid courage. Yeah. But for me, I've looked at the bourbon experience as something just to bond and to elevate conversations in a very relaxed, because it takes a while to smoke a cigar. It takes a while to finish a glass of bourbon. At least it should. You shouldn't be shooting it, right? It should. Yeah. It takes a while to finish that. And my other brother, we talk politics. And we just dive into all the world's issues. I think we've solved all the world issues over a good bottle of bourbon.
It's a good thing you two agree.
Yeah, well, it depends on how much far down the bottle that we get. Right. It might have caused some wars, Paul. I'm just kind of saying what that is. But it's always been over this experience, which is why I'm really glad the way you named it, Brothers Bond. And that's what kind of really drew me to the dynamic of that. talk to me about because I've been studying you guys a little bit. Talk to me about the intricacy of the process, because the mash bills that you have, and the audience is not familiar with the term mash bills, it's just the 4 grains that are used to make the bourbons. It's usually some type of barley, wheat, rye, and corn. But I'm just curious with you guys. I'm an engineer by degree, Paul. We can talk about that another day.
Oh, you are?
Yeah, I did chemical research, all that kind of good stuff.
Oh, wow.
So talk to me about how long it took you guys to just ideate on the different types of ways to put the corn with the barley, with the rye, the amount. Can you talk about the making of that process? Because that's what I'm curious about.
A lot of bourbons are 3 grain, and then there's 4 grain. We went with the 4 grain, and the rye has, the 2 main components of bourbon are, I guess, are corn and rye, right? And the rye has a spice and the corn has a sweetness. And then you have the barley and the wheat. And the way in which, so for those who don't know, a mash bill is combining all of those elements, the percentage of each element, and those percentages are the mash bill. And obviously how long you age it, etc. And ours is aged a minimum of 4 years. And for us, we decided to go high rye. So we're a high rye bourbon. Now you would think that would create this harsh sort of sweetness, right? I mean, a harsh sort of kick. It doesn't. Yeah. It doesn't. Somehow, by adding the barley and the wheat and the percentages that we did, and I want to tell you, oh, well, we're engineers by trade and we're chemists and we nailed it. Well, we just kept going and going until we found it. And somehow, by making it a 4 grain whiskey, we balanced out that spice. And there's a lot of bourbons out there that have all sorts of tricks. I mean, you have bourbons that are aged in port. I think, gosh, not the name of the brands, but like Angel's Envy is end in port, aged in port barrels. And we, ours is oak, obviously. And, I wish I could tell you that we had some equation, but the truth is the process of blending was the bonding process as well. The process of blending it and trying it. And in a way, being these 2 guys who aren't master blenders, obviously, we're just 2 guys that like bourbon. The fact that we were able to do this, the fact that we were able to blend this together, I think makes it so much more special than a bourbon connoisseur sitting there with his team doing the numbers. We didn't do that. We're just 2 guys, knew what we liked, and we kept trying until we found it. And that's just really what it is.
Well, Paul, that works better though, bro. Like that is the authenticity of it, right? And I'm not going to talk politics with you, but on the political side of me, I tell my audience a matter of there is no right and wrong in politics, right? Like it's just a matter of your opinion, right? And how far you want to push your opinion when it comes to politics. And so as long as you have a belief system, the belief structure, the authenticity will come, and you'll vote your authentic construction or constitution, or you encourage others. So what you're doing right now is the authenticity of it, because too many people push brands just to push it, right? That's why I don't talk products unless I literally believe in it, right? So the fact that you and Ian just made it based upon your palate, like you're not thinking about the mass market, right? I mean, maybe you were, I don't know. So I'm assuming you were making it about your palate, right? When you make it for your palate,
the market comes after. The people subconsciously or consciously can sense authenticity. End of story. I know when I buy something, if it's just BS. I know when I buy something, if it's something special that means something to me, to whomever created it. And I think, like, as an actor, as an artist, as a musician, whatever, the things that you do are a representation of your quote unquote brand. I hate to say that, but it's just the only word I can think of. And I wouldn't be doing something that I didn't believe in, because that's a lot of wasted time and energy. Can you imagine being a brand ambassador for something you don't really like? Not that I'm a brand ambassador, I'm a co-founder, but I know a lot of people that do that, and that must suck. You're peddling a product you don't even like.
you hate it,
man.
But you know what though? I think you mentioned acting, and I talk about this all the time, and you know this very well, right? Like the key to being a great actor is how vulnerable you are with a character, right? And the key to being a good musician is how vulnerable you are in your writing, right? And your delivery and the performance of it, right? Like the key to being a good visual artist is how vulnerable you are within the visual art that you are producing and bringing forward. And so I personally, if I can hypothesize just a minute, Paul, believe that based upon what you and I just said earlier about you and Ian having that bonding moment in that garden, I think it allowed you both to be vulnerable as you were creating this product where you guys could be honest with each other about if you really like it, if you didn't, is it speaking to me, is it speaking to you, and then how, right? Because then you can have more of a nuanced conversation on the how and the why.
Not surface. Yeah, a lot of I like what you said, vulnerable. I think a lot of acting and forget acting, any art, as you said, is about taking risks, taking a leap of faith. And I remember when I first started out in this career, I was a little guarded, I was guarded. And I now realize that anytime anything great happens in my life, it's because I open up and I'm vulnerable and I take some risks, emotional risks, right? And so I totally agree with you. And I would encourage to any men listening to this to have emotional vulnerability with your friends. I think it's really positive for the world, honestly. I think this whole masculine, look, there's a lot of talk. I think masculinity is a beautiful thing, but I also think part of masculinity is just being vulnerable, and it'll help people in whether it's their careers or their personal lives. I really believe that.
Paul, I couldn't think of a better way to end this incredible conversation that we just had. And if you think about it, this is the type of conversations that two brothers will have over a glass of bourbon and just pontificating, right? On the meaning of life. Audience, I cannot tell you enough to get this brother's bond. And just a really quick side note, he mentioned rye. I don't like bourbons that have high rye content. I don't like the rye versions of them. And so for you to kick it up and not to rye, but just to add the spice, but not to overwhelm the palate. Again, guys, I tell you, this shit is complex. It is a complex bourbon that you guys enjoy. Paul, I look forward to tasting more, and I can't wait to come to the distillery and take a tour one day, and hope to catch up with you and have some bourbon together.
Thank you so much, Mike. It was a pleasure. Thank you,
Paul. Congratulations, brother.
Thank you so much.
Take care, man.